All right, guys, we're back. Short shirt today, I think. We'll see. It always goes a little bit longer than we intend. Real quick here, just gotta do the usual. Just gotta do the usual Twitter posting. All right. Got a fun wine today too. Just a single wine. Piggybacking off a prior show, prior tasting. All right. Cool. We're on. We're on. All right. So the wine today. Let's start off with the wine as usual. We have a Madonna. A Madonna. Let me show you guys this sucker here. What the heck? Gotta get the right angle. All right. Madonna Tanat. So maybe you guys remember the Tanat from Uruguay. The Tanat from Uruguay. Grogu, what's up, my man? What's up? So the Tanat is we did the Uruguay wine a little bit further back. I don't even know how many weeks ago it was at this point. And I need a single one for that. And I would like to do in the future, have them side by side. But Uruguay, the main wine there is Tanat, and Tanat comes from. Oh yeah, I see you are you are a girl. Okay. Small icon. So Maturan is the name for the appellation where Tanat originally comes from, which is in Gascony in the far southwest of France. And it's funny, Gascony, I always remember Gascony from the Three Musketeers because I think it's oh my god, it's been such a long time. Well, the protagonist, I'm trying to think of which one it was. Anyway, he's from Gascony, and they always made fun of him because he had this boony accent. But Gascony is really where the Basques are. It's Basque country. And Tanat's very interesting in that it's very tannic. Very tannic. It has probably the highest tannin concentration of any red wine. All that kind of heart protecting stuff that people talk about when it comes to wine. And actually, to be fair, it has twice the number of people over 90 as the rest of the country in the region. So maybe there's some truth to it. But the only issue with Tanat is that it's very, very deep because of the tannins, and the tannins make it a little bit harsh to drink young. Now, it's gotten a little bit better with modern wine making techniques, but usually this is a wine that needs some years and can be very gnarly. It's not like your standard kind of grape. So can smell a very, very deep kind of blackberry kind of smell to it. It's maybe some almost like olive, a kind of olive leather smell. It's interesting that the tannins have so much body, but the flavor does not. There's plenty of flavor, don't get me wrong. But when you have a wine with this much weight on the back palate, you're usually expecting something from like Napa, where they punch you in the face with fruit on the forward end. It's actually almost a little light on the front end, and it's heavy on the back end. So it's good though. And I think as it airs out, I probably might decant it after this and just give it a little bit more air. And I think it'll soften the tannins even further. But yeah, it hits you hard. It's good though. Let's go. I'm going to take one more sip actually before we get into this. But this is going to be a fun topic tonight. Really speaking from the heart, I've been speaking with one of my clients. We had a talk today, and the topic of this is, what is shame costing you? What is shame costing you? SW, you got it. You go to the pub. Go to the pub. You do it. Right after the show, go to the pub. Get some shots with some Ukrainian mobsters. Thank you, Mr. Branford. Now, anyway, guys, so going into this, what is shame really costing you? And this is something I think that the You know, I am on this journey with a lot of you, right? The reason I'm good at what I do is because I I go through a lot of the same stuff, and maybe not in the exact same way, but I at least get so approximate to it, either through my clients or through myself, that I have to feel through these things. I have to experience in them myself. So I don't just talk about this stuff conceptually. There's very little I talk about purely conceptually. Most of what I go through when I talk to you guys, when I write, is stuff that I have personally experienced. That's where the magic comes from. Okay. So what is your shame really costing you? When I look at the manosphere, what I see is a lot of little boys who are afraid to actually express how they feel. Okay? It's a bold statement, and I'm not calling out anybody in particular. I actually really do not have anybody specific in mind, but I've been thinking about this. Been thinking about it, for instance, in a relationship. And this is difficult stuff because when okay, so let me put it this way. You get into the red pill, you get into the manosphere, and you get into it because you unconsciously unconsciously threw your emotions onto a woman. You didn't understand your inner child trauma, you didn't understand your attachment issues, and you were naive, and you threw your emotions onto a woman. And some woman, because of her own crap, took that as an opportunity to parasite off of you. She manipulated you. She she didn't take it seriously. She devalued your own feelings in many ways because of the way that you came across with it, but also because of her own stuff and not being ready to receive it. And so she hurt you. She broke your heart. She messed you up real bad. She messed you up. And so some of you then get into this community and you're told all this stuff, dark side of women. Here's what you have to be aware of. Here's the truth. Hey, you got to swallow the truth. Bitter red pill, swallow the truth. Okay, cool. Where does that get you? Is that the end of the journey? It's not the end of the journey. But I don't think, and I've talked about this before. This isn't new material. This whole uh, you have to kind of go back to where you came from. That you learn the truth about women, then you have to kind of learn to love again. And that said, and I was speaking with a client today, and we were just saying how, and he's an older man, very very wise. It's like a lot of men don't want to learn the truth, but even fewer men who learn the truth get over it. They don't get over it. They don't get over it. And I'm not even just talking about the really overt examples of this, where you see like the really bitter red pill guys, the Rolos, the people who live in their little closets or whatever. I'm not talking about those people who like spend their entire time on podcasts like complaining and bitching about shit. I'm not talking about them. They're easy pickings. I'm talking about the guys who get to the point where they're actually good with women. They make money, right? They're successful. They know a thing or two about women, but there's this piece, there's these subtle little pieces that maybe another girl in the past burned them. And so when they committed to the girl down the line, they couldn't show it all. Because maybe with that other girl, the girl that manipulated them and did them wrong, maybe they let out unconsciously a lot of their shame. That's a lot of what happens in these really succubus, dark sexual dynamics. It's a lot of shame is unconsciously being let out, and you and the girl are connected because of your unconscious shame. You've actually are sharing this with each other, right? There is like sexual connection and stuff, but you have to look at, okay, where's a lot of this stuff built into? What is underneath of that? What are the beliefs underneath of it? Why that person? I was speaking with another client, and a girl he's with right now, very in touch with her horror archetype. And they were hooking up. He came really quick, basically. He'd been doing some no fap stuff. He came really quick, and it didn't even bother her. She didn't care at all, right? And so the result of that was that he didn't have his shame triggered. Some other girl might care about it because maybe it affects her. She gets frustrated because some need doesn't get met. So she shames him, and then he feels shame, then he shuts down, and then you get into this sort of pattern. She didn't do any of that. She's more of a giver. Some girls actually like it when you come really fast because they like to see your pleasure, especially at least in the beginning. They like that because it's kind of like it's an emotional in for them. But anyway, not to get sidetracked with this stuff. The point is that a lot of these sexual connections, it's people look with this unconscious sort of two people hooking up with each other, and they block out all their other problems, and they just re-trigger, this sort of emotional need which is wrapped up in sex. So you get burned in one of those relationships, a lot of guys will shut down a certain part of them. So they'll learn how to become like powerful. They'll learn how to be good in bed. They'll give a girl a good experience. But one of the things that guys today struggle to do is to tell a woman just how much they actually want her. And you know why they do that? Because to do that is beta and it's weak. Now, let's forget about the fact that throughout most of history, if you look at love letters from men to their wives or to their lovers or to their woman that they hope to marry if they survive the war. And I think war brings out a romantic side in men because they're dealing with fatalism, but they will send these letters to the woman. And sure, some of these women, didn't reciprocate, right? Sad story. Downton Abbey thing, right? Only telling them what they want to hear because they're at war. But very often, these women were also infatuated themselves. And what we forget is that we forget this because we are so cucked as men. We're so cucked today. We forget that female sexuality is about being desired by a strong man. It's about being desired by a strong man. So these women today, but everyone's so afraid of being hurt. Guys are so afraid of being hurt that all they can do is show off. That's all they can do is show off. Alpha male can never tell a woman, I choose you. They can't do that, right? That is so endemic in the manosphere because it triggers guys' shame. It triggers their fear that if they tell a woman that, then that woman has power over them because they told the woman how they actually felt. I see so much stuff with guys. They worry about should I commit to her? Should I get in a relationship with her? Should I tell her I love her? And there's all these barriers. Like, well, what do you want to do? Like, I'll work with them on tactical aspects here, make sure they read the situation correctly. But there's a piece of them that is just afraid to say it because what if she rejects it? And the truth is that what if she rejects it? Like, why does it matter so much? Why are we so afraid of it? Why are we so afraid of the outcome with it? And a lot of what we're afraid about is that it reveals just how emotionally fragile a lot of us really are, just how much we need to protect ourselves around a shell. Again, some guys are really overt. Their overcompensation is obvious. I'm talking about here these tiny little things. You can be the guy gets to the point where he can commit. He gets to the point he says he loves the girl. They get married. They're together. And still that piece, he can't show it because of the fear of him becoming blue pill. Now, he may not even phrase it in those terms, but it's the fear that if he gives this woman the full gift of his desire for her, then what happens is that she'll take it for granted. And this is the thing. It's not fucking true. It's not true. If you are dealing with a girl, you're playing games with each other, it's a traumatized sort of dynamic. You guys are not sure about each other, then I get the caginess. But really, what's going on even then is that you're just afraid to say it because you're afraid of a reaction. And that is actually what's beta. You're afraid that if you tell that girl how you feel, that she is going to reject you. And the truth is that she might reject you in the early stages. She might actually do it. You're afraid to do it because if it happens, that's the end. Now, look, I'm going to really emphasize context here because if you are a guy and you are in that early blue pill stage and you're needy, and a lot of that energy is going to seep out. It's going to seep out in a bad way. It's going to pull in the wrong kind of girls. Their shame's going to get triggered by it. They're going to get into a power dynamic. I'm speaking to the guys, this specific subset of guys who are well through their self-empowerment journey, okay? Well through it. They understand themselves as a man. They understand their value as a man. And they are with a woman who they know loves them. Where is this point that those guys who have hit this high level, they are losing some serious magic because they can't give that other piece. And it transcends desire and comfort. I mean, we can talk about desire and comfort. We can, and I talk about it all the time. And you can say, well, this is extra comfort. But what it is in a certain sense is bypassing the paradigm. It's bypassing the whole paradigm of how much of one thing should you give to the other. It's operating at a different dimension, that it's the two of you connected and you're speaking your truth. And the thing is, when a guy doesn't do that, this is where he gets into these little weird distortions. So this is where he can't be as present in sex because there's part of him that still feels like he has to perform because he can't reveal himself completely. So he can't be fully present in the act. He can't just simply be like, I want you. So he actually blocks his mind, the shame in his mind blocks his sexual energy from flowing. And it stops the woman from feeling it in a clean way. So she feels this sort of weird, distorted stuff where you're trying to maneuver on one hand to act a certain way. Obviously, you want her, but there's too much emotional need put up in it because it's suppressed. Whereas if you were just to say it, like I've worked with enough guys to know that a lot of the ones, when they get serious with the girl, they don't want to spin plates. They want that girl. They just want that girl. It's literally what they want. They want that girl. But there is this big fear that if they communicate that to the girl, who is attracted to them at this point and who loves them and wants them, that they end up getting things worse. And what they don't understand is that as that dynamic goes on over time, that extra comfort, that extra trust actively amplifies the desire between both people because they can express so much in that dynamic that there's nobody else who's going to be able to get closer. Whenever we talk about the blue pill guys, talk about the guys who are giving to get and who, as a result, don't really get. And then the girl goes to some, alpha fucks, whatever, Chad guy. What's going on there is that the blue pill guy actually, he's doing nice things, but he's not communicating his emotions. He's not actually communicating how he feels. You don't understand the power of communicating how you feel without attachment. You just communicate, you say it. You tell her how you feel. If she's doing something stupid, you tell her. If you love her and you want her, you tell her. And as you get more comfortable doing that, your agenda around telling her diminishes. And that, for a woman, I think guys just don't comprehend how much a lot of these women almost need that kind of healing, because we're so focused on either the game or maybe our own trauma, our own baggage. We don't think about hers. We don't think that, okay, well, a woman starts to shut down sexually after the fantasy phase. How much of that has to do with the fact that she doesn't feel comfortable opening up herself sexually? And how much of that has to do with the fact that you don't feel comfortable expressing yourself emotionally? And I'm not talking about, like, you have to understand the context here. I'm going to like hammer this stuff because somebody could take any of this stuff out of context and it would be terrible advice. But in the context of a man, you will have to chip away at these very, very subtle pieces as you go deeper and deeper into your relationship with a woman. And if you don't do it, you leave things on the table, and that's when the marriage stagnates. That's when the connection stagnates, and that's when you stagnate. And how much good sex, how much connection do you leave behind? How much freedom, emotional freedom, do you leave behind because of your shame? Because you are too afraid of what she will feel, how she will respond if you lay it all out on the table. But you actually don't get the relationship you want unless you lay it all out on the table. Because when you lay it out all out on the table, that's when you're actually ready to walk. When you won't put the chips out on the table, you're not ready to walk. You're playing a game still. But when you just put all in and you say, okay, win or lose, I win because I'm not going to play a losing game. I can play the game with somebody else, and we can put our chips out on the table from the very beginning. You don't understand how powerful it is. You don't understand, and you don't understand how much it affects women and how much it helps to clear their own shame, which blocks them from opening up to you fully. And if you think another guy will be able to take that woman once you do that, it won't happen, because affairs happen because of repression, repressed emotions, repressed desires. That's where affairs happen. That's where cheating happens. It's how it happens. Okay? Women cheat on guys that they have to suppress their emotions and desires around. Men do the same thing to women. If you have an open dialogue, that won't occur. It's not going to occur. And for 9 out of 10 relationships, it leads to an incredible monogamous sex life. And maybe for 10%, it leads to an incredible, maybe there's some open aspects to it depending on what kind of stuff they have. But my contention is that most of the stuff, when it comes to I have to open up things more, has to do with unresolved emotional and sexual stuff, because they're not fully connecting to the person they're with. So let me look at some of these questions here. Grogu, not all women are terrible. I understood the frustration, but I was overlooked by someone I liked and I was cute. So guys overlook good girls too, it seems. A lot of men in these spaces I've noticed is that they want women they lust after to act like some virtuous woman. LOL. Yeah, it's the Madonna whore complex. It's the Madonna whore complex. And I've been working on a post, and man, I actually like hate this post now. It's like taking so long to write, but I had to restructure it and whatever. It'll get out there. But The Madonna horror is real, and men are totally messed up by it. Totally messed up. But again, why do they feel like they can't tell a good girl to what they want from her, what they see in her, what they desire in her? Why can't they say that? And why can't they do the inverse maybe for a girl who, I mean, you can do it both directions if you want to. It's a little less easy, maybe a little more complicated if you're turning a whore into a housewife. But a lot of these guys, they don't get it. They don't get it. They don't want to get it. You know, I heard something the other day. I was speaking with a colleague on Twitter actually, and he was sharing some stuff, and this guy was actually like catching, he was catching feels. He was having like a really good time with a girl, and some other fucking retard on Twitter told him, "Oh yeah, you're getting too attached, man. You just shouldn't be with her. You just dump, end it." And he actually did it and regretted it because of this. I really wish people would stay in their own fucking lane. I wish people would stay in their own fucking lane. I understand a lot of these guys are young and they got that YOLO whatever, who cares stuff. But a lot of you are really fucking retarded. You're really stupid. You don't know what you're talking about, and you're projecting your own bullshit on the other people, and you're making their lives worse. Learn to listen. Learn to actually consider, where is your, even if you don't have to be an expert, but consider, where is your friend coming from? If your friend is into a girl, why would you just tell him off the bat to end it because he's getting attached? I swear to God, I hear this kind of stuff and it blows me away. How do you deal with retroactive jealousy? Well, are you talking about yourself, or are you talking about dealing with a person who has it? Please clarify. The Mr. Branford experienced this with my new girlfriend. Gut feeling was to open up, but my head and experience was telling me to play more tactically. Ended up going with my gut, and we are in a great place 4 months in. Got fed up of swinging plates. It's just a distraction. Absolutely not important. You're right. It's a losing game. Yep. I mean, look, I'm not saying that you don't have to go through it. You may have to go through it and experience it. But I'm going to leave a lot of that low level stuff to other people because it's really easy to regurgitate. I'm going to speak to these little points because what people don't understand is that it gets a lot more subtle as you go up. And it's the paradox of growth, is that on the lower levels, when you make a shift, it's very big. It's a very overt, obvious shift. And it certainly moves things and it certainly changes things in your life. But this is the paradox, is that the difference between a guy who hasn't, still kind of in, still kind of in the matrix, but has no idea what he should be doing, how he should be talking to girls, start a business, whatever category you want to put it in. Guy who's asleep versus the guy who just got awake. Overtly, that's a very big difference. But actually, from an energetic and psychological factor, it's not that big. It's big, but it's very loud. But a lot of those guys who start off, okay, they've woken up. Well, they're still super needy around women. They're still super anxious. They're still super desperate to prove themselves. They've just now funneled that energy into an awakened state in a different paradigm. And actually, a lot of their condescension towards people who are asleep is a reflection of the fact that they don't really quite understand how similar they are to those people. They're just a little bit ahead. It's not that big. Whereas when you get to these higher levels, the shift is very, very subtle. It's very subtle. It's literally there's this one thing that I haven't expressed, and it's been a big source of pain for me, apparently, right? But I didn't express it. And then you go and you express it, maybe like one fucking thing or a handful of small things clustered around it. And just like that, everything changes. Your entire orientation towards women changes. Your orientation towards money changes. It happens just like that. It happens instantaneously, almost. Okay. It's very subtle. It's not loud. But the energy shift that you create is massive and profound in your life. Much bigger in some ways than the other ones. Not to discount the other ones. They're all important. But you have to understand it's not always going to be this big explosive thing. A lot of guys want their progress to be this big explosive thing. Every new step, it's fucking crazy, man. I'm just like new levels, new levels, new levels. Well, you know, at the top of the mountain, there are less and less steps, but they're steeper. So you don't go up as high, much higher, but the inclination is more. So maybe you don't cover as much ground, but to get to the next inclination, it's very technical. It's a very technical movement because the summit is not something you can just walk into. You have to operate a little bit differently. All right, let's look at some more questions here. This video is Pat Stedman Gold. I appreciate that, man. Camus, what if you lay off the chips? It works for a little while, and then there's various speed bumps, and you have to lay off the chips out continuously. Well, look, what I'm trying to describe here is very much a matter of you being okay with it. So when you're really laying the chips out and you're not polluting it with your need, what will happen is that you are actually okay with the chips landing where they are. It's not a matter. I mean, I do think that there is a process where you have to communicate, but that's not pure. That's you're expressing how you feel, and that's good. But the fact that you have to keep pushing it means that you're actually not giving her the full picture. Because if you were giving her the full picture, you would be at peace with it. But the fact that you're not at peace with it and you're still looking for a reaction is an indication that it's actually not clean, which is okay. It's part of the journey. You may do some of that pinging and fighting. I always say fighting is. I love seeing relationships where people fight, because if they're fighting, they still care. It's communication. It's not the best communication, but it's communication. The worst relationships are the ones where there's just an icy, frozen, obligatory dynamic. Those ones, good fucking luck. Very, very tough. Possible, very tough. You have a lot of work to do. And yeah, you will have to go through a lot of fucking fighting. A lot of fighting. But when you start to get to the summit, because that what happens is that you can lay it on the table because you don't need the polarized fighting dynamic anymore. You're actually able to say, okay, yeah, this is actually what I want. I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. This is how I feel about you. Sorry it took me so long to say it. All these years, I've loved you, and I never really told you how much I loved you because I was afraid to tell you. It hits different. Okay. Can you say more in what opening up means for a man? Words and actions, what else? What does it mean in day life? Well, I think a man who understands his emotions is able to navigate life with a clear head. When you see a guy who loses control or gets angry or freaks out, that's the fact that he's not dealing with emotions that are under the surface. Whereas if he knows his emotions, he can communicate them calmly. So opening up for a man, I think it can involve some crying. It can involve some crying, and I recommend men do that with other men, not with women. Um, I think that this door gets creaked open with men first, and then once enough of that's been let out in that environment, you can finish the job with the woman. But what does it mean? It, I think that the hardest thing for a guy is to simply put it laid all out on the table. Like it is a level of vulnerability, um, to just simply not to allow himself to get hurt, because at that moment when he lays it all out, he gives the woman the capacity to wreck him. And that is vulnerability, and that's what guys are afraid of doing. They won't give the full 100%. They'll give 90%. They'll withhold that 10% because then they can say, well, they're protected. In day life, though, it means being willing to do things like telling your woman you love her, and showing affection and showing desire, and not doing it with an agenda, just really being okay with it, being okay with saying it. And the thing is, it is this really mutual trust thing, because when the man does it, drops his guard, then will the woman drop her guard? It seems like a risk for the guy, but it's really not quite as much as you think, because if you do get to the level, not the lower level blue pill, but the upper level, when you say that to a woman, when you tell a woman, when you give a woman your heart, and if she were to take your heart and disregard it, then you would pick it up and you'd be done with her, because she wasn't at your level of opening. And while I'm not saying it wouldn't hurt, your level of consciousness would have passed hers, and the relationship wouldn't end with her actually trampling on you. It would end with you telling her, basically, you're not ready for the love that I have to give. It's more like that. And that's what I mean. This is about a context of where a man is in his growth and ability to do this. And I do think for most men, they have to go through some sort of unconscious heartbreaking, where they give their heart away unconsciously, naively, get it trampled on, and then they have to protect their heart and then learn to open it again with more of a conscious, deliberate effort. More of a, or not effort, but a conscious awareness that, yeah, here, I'm giving you my heart. Will you take it? Or you're not? Okay, I'll take it back. Myself, I broke up with someone I loved because I found out something about their past I couldn't accept. Cognitive dissonance about whether it was the right decision. Well, look, you did what you felt was right, and you know, you let them go to somebody who could accept it. And it's not a statement of judgment, because I think it's okay to not accept things about someone's past. The whole point of this is not to force an outcome. It's actually the opposite. It's to allow the correct outcome to happen. So by that being revealed and you giving your truth about it, which is that, yeah, I just really can't accept it. Cool. Well, now you guys can both move on. Can both move on. All right, I think this phone's gonna die out in a second. I'm just gonna try to go through these questions. Yeah. Girl I'm really into ignored me again, pretty much. I told her how I felt. She's emotionally avoidant and has made a mountain of her age difference. She told me stuff like, we're destined to meet soulmates. It's very tough to let go. She told me stuff like, yeah. I'm not messaging your month, but it almost feels like ghosting unresolved. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing is, we have to be aware of ourselves and how much we get pulled into the games ourselves, and we are done only when we are done with the games. That's it. We're done only when we're done with the games. Um, then we can really let go. And I'm working with a client right now. He's dealing with a real man eater, totally infatuated with her, gorgeous, narcissistic Eastern European woman. You know how it is, right? But he has to go through the process of realizing that, okay, yeah, she's this beautiful, seductive thing. Any guy would hook up with her. But actually, he's the one who has the light in him. He's the one who has the prize because he's the one who actually sees her for who she is. And moreover, he's coming to terms with the fact that, yeah, he has a gift to offer a woman, and this woman doesn't want it. This woman is a parasite. This woman only thinks about herself, and that creates an inner strength and inner resolve where it's like, you know what? I see you for who you are. You are the classic archetype of the witch who casts a spell, right? This is all archetypal. The witch who casts a spell to look like this beautiful woman. And then the spell's broken and it's an ugly old crone. That is what it's like with a lot of these narcissistic, borderline, whatever women. They're not really good at heart, but they parasite, they manipulate, they use your beauty to do it. You're the one who has the gift to offer. You have the gift of truth, you have the gift of love. And only a woman who can match your level of openness will get it. All right, guys. Um, be sure to check out Tony Bruno's show with me tonight. I'm going live at 9 p.m. We're going to be covering seasons of female sexuality. It's going to be absolutely awesome. It's always great with Tony. So I will see you guys there.